Da a croeso I bawb. Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone to the Addysgu'r Cymru annual conference, the Welsh Way towards sustainability and a prosperous red meat sector. My name is Claire Williams and I'm a beef and sheep farmer from North Carmarthenshire and a HCC board member. This will be the first of our virtual sessions this evening and we'll be focusing on education, to be followed by another 2 sessions. We'll have an update on the Beef Q project with Deanna Jones, HCC, and Tim Rowe from Celtic Pride. And the final session will be on international trade and how it affects the red meat industry in Wales with Paul McGrade, a former EU advisor. Please don't forget, tomorrow afternoon, everybody, we have our live streamed hybrid event at Builth Wells. It's not too late for you to register, so please, if you'd like to attend, you can do so via the HCC website. Now, before I have the very great pleasure of introducing this evening's speakers, I'd like to encourage our audience participants to post their questions via the Hoover Q&A function button at the top of your screen. We'll do our very best to answer all your questions in this session, but if time doesn't permit, I would please encourage you all to submit your questions on press@addysgol.cymru at the end of this session. Now, for the exciting bit. Tonight, we have our very own Elwen Roberts, Consumer Executive at HCC, and she'll be sharing with us a presentation entitled Educating the Future, HCC's Hub of New Teacher Resources, which was officially launched back in September of this year and aimed at young people, teachers and health professionals. Following Elwen's presentation, she'll be joined for a discussion with our expert panelist, Lloyd Henry. Lloyd is a food and nutrition teacher at Addysg'r. Lloyd has worked very closely with Elwen in the production of one of the documents you will see referenced in Elwen's presentation, which I have a copy here, a comprehensive guide to red meat. This guide was distributed to all secondary schools throughout Wales and for which Lloyd provides the foreword. Now then, before I hand over to Elwen, I'd just like to embarrass her for a few moments and take a little time for our audience to understand the long and illustrious career Elwen has had in the red meat sector, spanning over 30 years, beginning in the MLC in 1999, and today as Consumer Executive for HCC. More publicly recognised as the consumer face of HCC, you will have all seen Elwen on the S4C programmes over the years, undertaking cookery demonstrations. She's been in our schools up and down the country and at large consumer-facing events such as the Royal Welsh Show and the Royal Welsh Winter Fair. But behind the scenes, she is the organisational lead on teacher training and the development of the educational resources to help children understand the origin of food. She also spends a significant amount of time developing recipe content and prepares dishes for digital food photography and video creation. I know the last 18 months will have been significantly challenging in terms of the amount of content she's had to deliver via social media due to COVID, where we've all had to learn new ways of working. In 2019, HCC were very proud to celebrate the fact that Elwen was nominated and subsequently won the Meat Businesswoman Trade Body Award in the Women in Meat Industry Awards. Our second speaker this evening is Lloyd Henry, a food and nutrition teacher at Addysg'r, a Welsh medium secondary school in Swansea. Lloyd has been teaching food at all key stage levels for over 10 years now, having come into teaching after years of employment within the food industry, working at a variety of hospitality and catering establishments across the world. Now, I only got to meet Lloyd for the first time the other evening, but immediately I was struck by his passion for his subject area and his willingness to share his knowledge and expertise. From his personal experiences within the food industry, his enthusiasm is quite simply infectious, and I can see clearly why students within his care would be inspired by his knowledge and his teaching methods. So we're in good company this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Elwen, and I very much look forward to directing your questions as part of the discussion following her presentation. Elwen, it's over to you.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you, Claire. And thank you very much for that introduction. And I think also probably giving my age away there with all of that as well. But thank you very much for that. Fel dach chi'n gwybod, a fel o Claire yn deud, my presentation this evening is entitled Educating the Future, Addysgu'r Dyfodol. And what we want to do here at HCC is just share with you really some of our recent work. We've obviously been involved in education, as you've heard, you know, from the start of HCC and MLC prior to that, but we have been developing a suite of new resources, which I'm delighted now to be able to share with you. I'm not going to go into these in great detail because I know we've probably got a mixed audience listening this evening and watching. These are mainly targeting people within food education or within education, but I do think it's beneficial for all of us to know what's available and what perhaps is there to help you. So I'm now going to move on to the next slide and just show you that I'm giving you a little overview really of these educational resources. And of course, these are aimed at helping young people, our future, ein dyfodol, which is so important. Like I said, these were launched in September as the start of the academic year, obviously, and they do form a key part of our market development activity within Wales and the UK. So, of course, these go along with all the work we do on consumer campaigns, also the work we do with retail, with wholesalers, with butchers, and also the food service sector. But the education and health work we do is very, very key to us. So we'll go on to the next slide now. And what the education resources, these new ones really, take the form of is a new website. We're delighted that we've got a new platform, Hwb Ci Coch Cymru, redmeethub.wales. And for teachers that are listening maybe, we've obviously gone for the wording Hwb and redmeet.cymru.wales because you're very familiar with Hwb, with the Welsh Government, so this should be a very easy one for you to remember. And down on the right-hand side here, you can actually see maybe just a screenshot of one of the pages. And you can see there that obviously the wording, easy to follow. We've got nice colouring there, nice images. So the idea of this website is that it's very attractive to start off with. It's user-friendly. And of course, the resources are bilingual. Lle mae popeth da ni roid I fyny fan hyn ar gael yn ddwyieithog. So we do hope that this becomes a platform. We feel it's an excellent platform for teachers to access free resources as well, which is so important. And then teachers can go into this and actually do as they wish with the resources. You can edit, you can print, download, whatever you want to do with them. And bwriad ni fan hyn, our aim really, is that this becomes a go-to website for teachers and pupils to access accurate and balanced information, because that's very important, obviously. And I'm sure we'll hear that from Lloyd later. You know, we have to ensure that what we put up here is based on facts, based on science, based on government guidelines, so that then teachers know that they can direct pupils here and they can also use these resources and know that it's credible. So that's the key part about this, and that it's a go-to website for all about meat, all about red meats. Okay, so we're going to the next slide. I've already mentioned that they're bilingual, maen nhw'n hollol ddwyieithog. They're also age-phased, and in the past, I think we concentrated more on resources for secondary schools. But this new website takes into account all the age phases from foundation years, so your very young pupils starting school for the very first time from the age of 3 upwards to Key Stage 4. And this is obviously where we've got the 14 to 16-year-olds. And although the resources mainly perhaps are more suited for the Key Stage 4, 3 and 4 studying food, I think all teachers will find them very, very useful for other subjects, and in particular, maybe our sustainable farming section. And what we've got on the website, we have an array, wealth of PowerPoint presentations, worksheets, there's videos, quizzes, a wide recipe bank, posters, and also interactive activities, which are really important, because what we've obviously found is that the pupils have fun. If they enjoy doing something interactive, they're far more likely to take on board the messaging. And we cover a wide range of topics here on the website, from farm life, sustainable farming, and this is where we can educate about the Welsh way of farming, where meat comes from, cooking, healthy eating, role of red meat in a balanced diet, which again is key. Although we obviously are here to support and promote the red meat industry, we'll ensure that everything there is balanced as well. And there's far more, there's a lot more on the websites. Okay, symuded nesa. This screen just shows you really, again, just an example. These are from our sustainable farming section. And what we're doing here is obviously is trying to educate pupils from all ages where food comes from. Then we're also trying to educate how that food is produced and also who produces it. So we do have a lot of information there about farmers, what farmers do, and actually showing farms and the work that's involved. So there is a wealth of information there, and they're progressive, which is very important. There'll be very, very simple information for the younger pupils, right through to in-depth presentations for secondary schools. Iawn, symuded nesa. What's very important, like I touched on, we obviously want this to be a credible source of information. So we've had to make sure that everything up there is curriculum compliant. And what we've done is consulted with a number of people to ensure that, you know, they are suitable for the curriculum and also compliant. And of course, will meet the needs of a new curriculum, which has obviously changed recently, and that's for primary and secondary schools. And we've worked with various people. One of the ones on primary is Lloyd, and Lloyd works for Ceredigion Education Authority. And you can see below there what Lloyd quoted. She had a look at the resources, was involved with some, and has said, you know, that they are attractive, extremely valuable, and in particular will help also educate in the new areas now of learning. And an example here is that they're suitable for language, literacy and communication, which is great, so that they would really be very cross-curricular. And if we see on the next slide, we can see there, oh, there we are, going back to this one. We also consulted with Alice and Candy, and if there's teachers here from secondary schools, you will obviously know Alison. She is the Food and Nutrition Subject Officer at WJEC and CABAC. And Alison there has said, which is great to us, a great endorsement, that she feels that these new resources are fabulous, that they're very learner friendly, colourful and based on sound contents, which again, very important. Excuse me. And then those children that are studying the GCSE qualification, food and nutrition, that this information will be very useful for them, because what we've also tried and do is to put things in there that will help with the experimental work that teachers have to do and pupils have to follow. And also with our recipe section, when you have time to go and have a look, you'll see that we've actually targeted them to different skill levels. And again, I'm sure this is something we can touch on with Lloyd. Pupils do have to show that they covered all the skills involved. So I just mentioned Lloyd there, and of course we are going to hear from Lloyd later. Now Lloyd as well has been a fantastic help to us here at HCC. Claire did show that new resource which I've also got here, Canllaw Cyflawn I Gig Coch, and it's basically a really fantastic book, a guide all about red meat. And if we go on to the next slide, it'll show there what you can get in this book. So Lloyd was key in checking that this was sound content, helping us write it, and that it does meet the needs of what schools want. And you can see there it covers things again from provenance, sustainable farming, Welsh way of farming, what is meat, cuts of meat, how to cook them, recipe ideas, and going through to food styling, because again, that's something obviously that pupils have to do. And while I'm just talking about that, I don't know if any of you have followed Lloyd or do follow Lloyd on Cynhadledd Henry. On his Instagram page, it's fantastic, and I really urge you to follow, because Lloyd not only cooks a lot himself and puts up all sorts of recipes for us to follow, but he does also show what his school does. And I'm delighted to be able to say that, you know, Addysg'r for certain are doing a lot of practical cooking sessions, which is great, because I think we hear sometimes that there isn't as much cooking going on, but I know Lloyd certainly does that and shares it on Cynhadledd Henry. Just dod yn ôl at y llyfr yma, we did send out copies to every school in Wales of this book, of the secondary schools. So if there is a teacher listening that for some reason didn't get them, we can send you a class set of these books. And there are more available if you do find them useful. And some catering colleges have also requested these. Diolch, symudwn nesaf. This just shows a couple of pages from this new book. So that's just showing you the way, the style we've gone for, so that it's interesting. We didn't want to, you know, have so much text that children would just be put off with that. We're using a lot of infographics, as you can see, which does help to reinforce the learning. Iawn, i symud'n nesaf. Okay, I know I've concentrated more on our education sources for schools, but here what we want to show you is just some of the health resources that we've also produced. Adnoddau sydd gyda ni ar gyfer gweithwyr iechyd yn y byd iechyd proffesiynol. And when you go on to the new website that I referred to, the Hwb Coch Cymru, you then can choose whether you go into the education side or you can go into the health side. We are targeting really professionals working within the health sector, because what we have found from feedback, and we have in the past been going annually to the health professionals conferences in Cardiff, and the feedback we were getting is that they are really looking for resources they can pass on to their clients, to patients. So this platform on our website got a wide range of resources and information to support learning, again, about diets and health. There's a series of fact sheets there, nutritional guides, all about red meat and, of course, balanced diets, recipe sections and videos. We've also, there's a new publication we have produced, which will be given out at our consumer events. And we were delighted to work with specialist dietitian Sioned Quirk. Some of you may be familiar with Sioned on the SLC Fit Cymru. Mae Sioned wedi helpu ni'n enfawr. So Sioned was involved in co-writing the book for us, and also we have produced a series of mini videos with Sioned, which we will be soon putting out on our social channels. So there's a lot of work happening on the health side as well. So if we go on to the next one. Here we've just got a brief example. Again, infographics are used a lot, and I think that is the norm now. But it does help to convey information in a concise way and in a way that's very easy to understand. And I do urge you to go and look at this website so that you can actually see what's there. Okay, and nesa. And coming soon, so I ddod yn fuan iawn, we are working on a lot more progressive bilingual resources to cover all key stages. And also we're working on a lot of new games and activities and a new video, which is all about sustainable farming, which will be an animated video for primary schools. So really, I hope I've just given you a snapshot of the sort of work that we're doing, what is available there, and that our aim is to assist teachers and parents, of course, across Wales to help educate the future generations. You know, we know it's so important that we're educating about healthy eating, cooking, provenance of food, the way we farm here in Wales, and that's key, isn't it? We've heard so much recently, and it's very, very important that we get the correct information across about the Welsh way of farming, and of course about the qualities of Welsh lamb, Welsh beef, and pork producing Wales. So diolch, I just hope that that has helped, and that it's something that, you know, you will go and have a look and help share that this exists, and the more people that will access it, the more pupils will benefit. Diolch. Thanks. Back to you, Claire.
Diolch yn fawr. I really feel we haven't got enough time this evening to do all these resources justice. I mean, it's just fantastic. I'd like to kick the questions off really with Lloyd. And firstly, I'd like to thank you on behalf of HCC, but not only that, on behalf of levy payers and you know, parents out there for the time and commitment you've given to this in helping us produce this comprehensive guide to red meat. I'm very curious to know though, Lloyd, you know, how do you feel this guide supports the teaching of food within the classroom?
Well, coming out from a point of view, the main thing that a teacher is actually involved in the construction is like I feel like, you know, on the code, you know, what sort of the GCSE, whether it's the food nutrition course or the hospitality course. So having a teacher who's there in front of pupils, being able to contribute to something that's going to go to every school across Wales is going to be a massive benefit, because, you know, had they not contacted anyone from the educating sector, you know, possibly it could have gone down the wrong avenue. They could have gone down sort of streams that are not relevant. So it's good that the WJC have been involved, and also that they've got teachers who are teaching what is required to the pupils, that, like Elwen said, that they're getting the facts, the science is correct with it, and it's coming from a reputable source. So, you know, it is sort of, you know, it's solid, it's good information that can't be questioned.
Right. And in terms of the website, I mean, certainly when I've looked at it, I was simply blown away by the extent of it, the amount of resources that are available there to teachers and pupils and health professionals. And certainly Elwen referred to how it was pitched at the right age level for the different key stages. Like, you know, you can really see the value of the input of what you're doing there, Lloyd. But in terms of how the website is used in the classroom, you know, I know you've used it where you are. Did the pupils find it beneficial? And, you know, what were the resources that they utilised in particularly and found value in?
So in terms of the website itself, it's the good thing about it is the fact that it's so user-friendly. Like it's colourful, it's interactive, it's not full of words as such. You can find whatever you need immediately. Even though it's for educators, I feel it's also it's sort of tailored to what the students want to learn. That they can find the information just as easy as I can. I've used loads of it across all key stages. So even though I know they've got sections on 11 to 14 and 14 to 16, it's so multi-layered. You can actually use the older resources that the children use to sort of push and challenge the younger children, and also to reaffirm the information that the older children need, possibly something they've missed. And at key stage 5 as well, I've suggested that they look at sort of the health side of it as well. So they're not only looking at the education sources, they're looking at the health source side of it. So they're looking at what, you know, what food guidelines are. So they're looking at what dietitians are saying, what the benefits of red meat and so on that. Key stage 3 wise, you know, we focus on sort of food provenance, where meat comes from, who makes it, you know, where it comes from, and so on. Especially with the introduction of the new curriculum, you know, coming close now to about 2 years' time, there is a massive emphasis on Welshness. So sort of, you know, a belonging of a community. So it is important that the pupils know, as Elwen said, you know, what the Welsh way of farming is. That it's important to understand that, you know, high quality meat done the Welsh way, you know, it is sort of a flag bearer in the world. And then for sort of key stage 4 wise, we look at sort of the recipes are fantastic, and also because it's tailored to what their skill set are. If a pupil possibly doesn't have fantastic practical skills, they can look at what the basic recipes are and then build up their skills, possibly whether that's in school. But it's the fact they can look at it at home. It's that it offers sort of that. It's a sort of holistic thing, so they can do it in school, they can do it outside of school. It tailors to their learning. You know, even though I do, and I use the PowerPoints and the worksheets, they can go and do their own research, and that can only increase their subject knowledge of what they're doing. The fantastic thing about the resources on there, even though they're downloadable, it is the fact that you can edit it to tailor. So if you think that there is something in there that possibly isn't of relevance, not so much that it's not of relevance, but just to the lesson, you can possibly get rid of that slide just for this lesson, or you can change the question slightly so it's more suitable to the area you're in. Because obviously in Gowerton, where I work, it's not as agricultural, but if you were teaching sort of, I suppose, down in Llandalo or Llandovery way, you know, obviously there is more there's more sort of scope to change the resources to possibly they could do a case study on a farm that's local. So yeah, like I said, the recipes are fantastic. The thing about food provenance, the kids and myself, we love, you know, the meat cut posters and the posters that are available here. Like, kids will stare at that for hours because they just, it's just the way it's set up and how the things are pulled out of it and stuff like that. They don't realize where the meat actually comes from in terms of that. Because of the way the new course has gone now as well, there's a big emphasis on food science. So I know in the booklet, there's a fantastic sort of section about experiments you can do with meat. And because one of the courseworks is to do with, you get a choice to do an experiment. And also in the A-level, the level 3 course, they have to do an experiment on a type of food. So again, that brings in the meat sort of area, you know, or the meat industry into sort of something that the kids can relate to as well.
I'm going to challenge you a little bit further on that now, Lloyd. In terms of sustainability, what do young people know and understand about red meat production in Wales, do you think, and sustainability?
Well, obviously, from an educational point of view, like we do have to give sort of a balanced opinion on it, and then, you know, so we look at it from both sides of the story as such, but we try to get the kids to sort of understand that obviously it's up to them in terms of what their decision is. But what we do tend to focus on is like I said now, that we tend to say that as long as it's done the Welsh way, that a high quality meat is reared, and it's done, you know, to the possible natural, sustainable way, that there obviously there are many benefits in a sustainable way to rear red meat. It's just that, you know, they could get facts and figures from somewhere else, but we try to give it a balance. We do give it a balanced sort of argument and let them decision. But we also, I come from sort of an agricultural area, so I'm obviously passionate about it. I would tend to, you know, try and get them to look at what the benefits of producing red meat as opposed to the negative side of it, because obviously it is a massive industry, and it obviously it's something that a lot of them, especially in Wales, can relate to, because, you know, you'll either know a farmer, you will know someone whose friend is a farmer, or so on, because of just that's just the nature of the country.
So Elwen, if I may, I certainly, when I went through the website and, you know, the extent of it, I felt a responsibility as a parent, really, that as Lloyd said, all this information is there and we should be utilising it more, and certainly at home, you know, and the responsibility is on me as a parent. Elwen, you know, how tough a job have we got in terms of educating the parents in terms of sustainability and how meat is produced and how it's produced the Welsh way?
Well, I think obviously it is a tough challenge, isn't it? Because we, like Lloyd mentioned there, we hear so many stats figures being quoted, which are very often worldwide rather than them being figures, you know, about the UK way of farming and the Welsh way of farming in particular. And I think it's great that Lloyd, obviously, as a teacher, gives that information, but then lets the children make the informed choices. I know that's important. But teachers like Lloyd and parents, you know, are very influential, aren't they, in children's lives and in the views of children. So this is why we have got a lot of work to do, all of us, I think, haven't we, jointly in the industry, to make sure that these messages get across, that people do understand, and then that they're the figures that are quoted and are used, and then hopefully the younger generations will understand. Because our key message is, you know, it's not that you should be stopping to eat meat, it is obviously the meat that you choose, isn't it? Where you get your meat from, the quality of the meat, that it has been, like we've just said, you know, reared and produced in a sustainable way. So we know that we've got challenges, you know, and I think all of us, we need to work together, and it's certainly going to be something, a key part of the way forward on our education work. And I think one thing that I would like to ask Lloyd as a teacher as well, it's something that we ask for feedback, but we also want to know, you know, how much red meat are they able to use in schools? Because, you know, we do often know that some parents will say, no, we'll send another form of meat in, or perhaps we compete with chicken, obviously, very often, but hopefully, you know, there is the opportunity, and this is where we need to know and find out from teachers, if anybody's listening, what can we do to help? And, you know, will pupils, do they bring red meats, Lloyd, into the class to cook with?
Yeah, because as you mentioned earlier, I am probably more proactive in terms of getting the kids. I tend to think that they learn better through doing. Mm-hmm. So that they do get more of a buzz, and they do get more education about cooking through cooking. They don't want to know how to make a chili or how to make a bolognese. They want to make a bolognese. I would say across year 7, 8, and 9, we try to incorporate at least one red meat, whether that's we predominantly use beef and pork, and then in Key Stage 4, you know, because of the variety of the things they have to cook, and they have to meet all the skill criteria. So maen nhw'n defnyddio fel sicrhau bod pork, cigoen a cico. So red meat, lamb and pork is used at least once throughout each term, because then that just builds up their skill set. So for example, now I've got a Key Stage 4 class, a year 10 class tomorrow. They're cooking beef stroganoff. They've been given an option of a high-end sort of a steak cut, a medium steak cut, a budget steak cut. And obviously that has to be done because everyone comes from different backgrounds. So we give them we do give them the option of you know, budget-wise. But yeah, it's just a case of, I do feel that kids want to use it. They tend not to make the link between the fact that it is meat and you do have to cut meat and it doesn't come pre-packed and pre-chopped. That can be quite a sort of an alarming thing for some of them. In terms of when we use mince, we try to make sure that they use sort of one with the less percentage fat as possible, because obviously we look at dietary guidelines and we make sure that they link the red meat to the Eat Well guide and so on like that. But so long as parents are supportive, so long as you've got a teacher who wants to cook, kids will cook. My plant moyn dysgu, my plant moyn neud e. They want to be practical. They don't want to write about, you know, like I told you, they don't want to write about cooking. They want to cook.
Can I just quickly interject there? Because we've had a question from Emily Bevan, and I know this is an area that you've discussed before. Emily's saying that she struggled to encourage students to bring lamb as they find lamb too costly, and she's tried several times to get them to cook lamb Rogan Josh, but they just bring chicken as an alternative. Again, minced beef they use a lot of, but don't have time to effectively cook diced beef. So Can you offer Emily any advice or help with this?
Yes, similar to Emily, lesson time is a massive issue. I've probably got less than Emily. I have 50-minute lessons. We tend to try and get the kids to prep as much as they can at home. So, I know in terms of, so if the beef needs to be diced, or if the lamb needs to be diced before that, certain things we've done with lamb, we've done lamb koftas. So we've sort of turned them into, so we've used the mince that way, we've spiced it, whether it's with a bit of cumin and turmeric and so on that. So obviously, again, you can use, if you look at sort of the Indian route there, as opposed to the lamb rogan josh, you could sort of possibly tailor that to the a kofta to a degree. Completely understand where she's coming from when she says about that most kids will just want to eat chicken. Because it is all that they eat at home. It is what they primarily see at in the supermarkets. I sort of taste the lesson, so when I will do a demonstration lesson, hopefully before the lesson, and we get the pupils to taste it, and more often it's a positive reaction. They'll go, "Oh, I didn't expect it to taste like that," or it's very few and far between. The kids will go, "I'm not going to make that next lesson." Once they've sort of seen how you make it, what you need to do it. The way I combat the budget thing, so if I was to make the koftas, I tend to get them to bring in the mince itself, and then anything that goes into it, whether it's the spice or so on, because we've got such an extensive store cupboard, they will give a contribution of, let's say, between 20 and 30p, because you only need a certain amount of this spice, that spice, and so on like that. So I don't know, yeah, obviously you're more than welcome to give my details out at the end, and someone wants to contact, if any teachers here want to contact me, by all means, they're welcome to contact me.
Little tricks and techniques, that's brilliant, valuable advice. Very quickly, I just wanted to ask, let's have a look. There was a question here from Catherine Smith. The resources are really appropriate for Donaldson's new curriculum. How do we encourage the widest circulation and take-up possible across Welsh education authorities?
Well, that's obviously something we are keen. We have launched them. We have obviously gone to WJEC and asked, but we do want more and more people to know about these. And it is something, again, we will certainly be doing a lot more work on. For primary schools in particular, I think it's easier maybe to contact the secondary schools and the direct to the food teachers. But we do see, these can be used wider, as I said, on other different subjects. But certainly for primary schools, we really want to be shouting about them now and getting everybody to come and use them. So that's very important. And I think on that point, just very briefly, because Lloyd mentioned, you do a lot of cooking, and you were saying about children at first, perhaps not used to seeing meat, perhaps in its raw state, and that it comes, very often they buy them already cut. Of course, we know it's difficult in primary schools to do practical cooking lessons involving savoury. So that's something, again, we really do want to look at. And I think I actually saw down the bottom there, Claire, a question. We are looking at working with butchers, and it's something that we are looking to see how we can do this and how we can support teachers and possibly putting them in touch with butchers and even coming up with a new project. So there's a lot of work going to be happening to really try and help teachers across Wales.
That's great, Elwen. And I can see the questions are flooding in now, and there's some fantastic ideas. There's one coming in here about red meat vouchers for schools. These are all things that we as a team at HCC will look to pick up on now. And certainly, if there's anything that springs to mind after this live session, please email the team at HCC. I'm conscious of the time.
Sorry, Claire, can I just interject one last thing? Do you know, in terms of the link with the local butcher there, if you speak to whoever's in charge of careers at school, there's something called the EB, which is called the Education Business Exchange. They should be able to put you in contact with a local butcher. So, because butchers will tend to want, because there's not many butchers coming through, they'll want kids to be butchers for the future. So the best way for them to get someone to come into the industry is to come into school, to give a demonstration, and then they can talk about the avenues the kids can go down if they're interested in butchery. So we've had someone come in from Gorsinan, and it was a fantastic response to us.
And that's a fantastic linkage, isn't it? All of us working together as stakeholders in the industry. So thanks very much for that, Lloyd. Well, it just remains for me, I'm very sorry to say, to thank you all really. I'd like to thank both our speakers, Elwen Roberts and Lloyd Henry, and thank you as an audience for your participation this evening and for your questions that were flooding in towards the end there. Thanks ever so much. We'll be picking up on those. And I'd like to thank the HCC executive behind the teams for your technical support. But finally, I'd like to remind you all to tune in to our sessions that follow on later this evening, the Beef Queue project and international trade. And I'd like you all to encourage you to register, if you haven't already done so, to the live streamed hybrid conference tomorrow from the comfort of your own armchair. You can join us all in Builth. If we do have any social media users out there, you can utilize the hashtag HCC conference, hashtag Cynhadledd HCC. So I'd like to thank you all. Diolch yn fawr and nos da.
Diolch.